I'm so happy, really happy, happy, happy. And I'm going to give 2 talks now. And the first one, the title of it, Fred, is Expectation. I've been asked to give a little orientation for those who are here for the first time. And those of you who aren't, remember that day when you came the first time. And as somebody said, don't push. Just let them be the new ones. We want them to get every atom of the maximum out of everything. But we don't move fast that way in strange atmospheres. And this is strange. You remember your first one. Remember it all day today and maybe tomorrow and the next day. And you think of the new ones that are here that have those red, is it red ones? Red strings on their name tags. And remember your first time and be sort of loving and supporting, but don't push. Let them get the dream of what it is, the feeling of it. You can't tell them about it. You can't explain CFO. And I'm not trying up here because I've learned I can't. I'm just telling you a little bit about the activities, those of you who have not been. Again, let me see how many have not been to CFO before, anywhere. Well, this is for you. Well, it's for the others too, but they can listen in. Our day starts, as you know, with a morning meditation. And I was over here almost at 7, and I thought it was at 7 o'clock, and I could have rested or read or something. But it's 7:45, is that right? We're here at 7:45. Ruth and I had some time in the prayer room before that, so it wasn't wasted. Meditation at 7:45. This is the beginning of the day, when you get still before God, and after that you have to be listening to people, you know, most of the time. But you listen to him, this first experience in, how long is that meditation? 30 minutes. And get in touch with God. Tune in and tune out everything that you left behind. Don't let anything that you left there bother you while you're here. You can't do anything about it here. And just forget it and enjoy every minute. So that you begin with a morning meditation, and I don't know if that's going to be led by one person. It certainly was a good start off this morning Howard Bitzer gave us. But this will be worth your time. Get up and meet here for that. Of course, breakfast follows that. And I don't have to urge you to go there. Then I saw my first flag raising at a CFO today, and I was amazed. I'd heard about it, but I had never experienced it. It's to really get you down in here, you know. You stand there, well, I could talk about that, but it's a beautiful thing. I thank God for those stars and stripes. That's the reason I can get up here and talk, and I can do the things I do because of those stars and stripes still waving. We thank God for our nation and our flag. After breakfast, there's a talk. And this morning I'm speaking, and John will be speaking to you in the morning. And then following the talk is the time of rhythms. Now that really did, I just thought, what have I gotten into when I went to my first rhythm? I thought, you know, I was trained to try to be a lady. And I couldn't feel I was a lady and enter into some of those activities. Marcia Brown was leading them, and there was nothing wrong with it. It just was new to me. And I thought, now, I'm not about to get up there and make a fool of myself. But I made a fool of myself sitting on the sides and watching the rest of them. And then I got into it, and it's glorious. It's just glorious. It's child play. Glenn Clark said, come into camp as little children. Become children again. Children play and frisk, and they don't have nervous breakdowns. And so get into the rhythms. It's really therapy. It's a part of it. It helps bring balance into the camp. You sit all day, and your body needs a time to release itself, and every cell in your body loves to worship God. It just doesn't get a chance very often, but it does get a chance in rhythm. Okay, after rhythms comes creating. We have creatives. I don't know how many of these, I heard some of it last night. There'll be creative writing, I'm sure. And don't go in there and think will have to have had a course in creative writing and qualify. Your teacher won't even have a degree in creative writing, I'm sure. If they do, they're out of place. You come in there to express what you've been taking in and let God speak to you further, and then you write or you draw something or you go to a creative speech or drama class, and sometimes they enact a parable or a story in the Bible, and once you see it acted out, you'll never forget that. It'll be one picture's worth 1,000 words. And so then there is creative walks in nature or creative teaching in nature. I don't know which this is. Glenn Ellis just took his people and had all of his equipment out, and he talked about it. But there's some who take nature walks. And if I ever saw a place where there's beauty all around us, we ought to live like saints here. We're in the midst of so much beauty. You ought to see where I live. Mesquite trees, about this big. No colors like this. They just drop off. They don't turn pretty before they die. They just drop off. We never have all this beauty. You don't know how fortunate you are. And then there is music, creative music. You're going to have creative music here. Have I left out a creative? I tried to include them all. Yes. Yes, I said speech or drama or both. So then after the creatives, it's time for lunch, and then it's the horizontal hour. Now you lie down. That means to get horizontal. Children, not in children here, but one that I've seen, a little one, and I imagine it'll spend most of its time horizontally. But we need that time of horizontal. You may be young and lots of energy, but to bring a balance for the day, the body needs a time to come apart and rest. In music, there's activity and rest, movement and rest in all of nature. And in CFO, we need that time for relaxation. If you don't need it, and you're next door to me, you may keep me from getting it. You see, just get horizontal. Take a nap if you want to. You can do anything you want to do that hour. Just get horizontal. Let your body go. And you can't sit up. You know, the neck weighs so much that your head gets tired of holding it up. And you need to lie down once in a while to relieve your neck from carrying that load around. So take your horizontal hour seriously. It's part of CFO. And this isn't a family camp, so you don't have the problem of youth. They don't ever feel the need to lie down till you want to get them up in the morning. Then they want to stay in bed. All right. After the horizontal hour is recreation, and I don't know what facilities they have here, except there's a swimming pool over there, and I don't know if it's heated, but you can find out about the recreation. I'm not going over there and see. And so the recreation hour follows that. And then today at 4 o'clock, we'll have a prayer preparation time. Don't miss that. And friends, after today, have your own prayer preparation time. Don't rush into prayer group gabbing and talking like we do so often. Approach that in a feeling of expectation. Approach all of these activities with expectation. That's the name of my first talk, I told you. But you're to approach each of these with expectation, or you won't get what you ought to out of it. If you expect me to give you something while I'm up here, well, I'm just talking. But if you expect God to speak through me, you'll get a lot more. So it's up to you to expect something from me from God. And John would tell you the same thing. We're just vessels standing up here, whatever he gives us. So believe when you come, have expectation. Believe when you approach that prayer group time. I'd always say the prayer hosts and hostess should have their picture right up with both the speaking leaders. They've got one of the biggest jobs, unless it's the chairman of the council ring, of anybody in the camp, because as the prayer groups grow and become powerful, the whole camp grows. And when they sag, the whole camp sags. And so we want to come to prayer group with expectation. It's the only time in the day, it's unique. After a full day of busy being with people, eating with people, and sharing it, we all love it, where you get with 6 or 8 people, I don't know how many, a few, and sit down together at the feet of Jesus, and he talks to it. Somebody else is talking. It's not a period of discussion. The prayer group isn't. It's not a period of visiting. It's not any of those. It is a time of coming together in a way that you can't do any other time in the week with a few of God's people. And you just become such close friends. You pray for each other, and then you branch out and pray from anything. But that prayer group is a hidden dynamo in each prayer room. And don't miss the prayer groups. But today you're going to have a sort of a preparation leading into it. But after today, you'll go straight to your prayer group. Before you leave your room or whatever you're doing and start to your prayer group, do God an honor and your prayer group leader a favor and go there in expectation and act like you're going to a prayer group. Act like you expect to see Jesus there, and think about the things you'd like to happen while you're there. What are you going to expect out of that prayer group? Go there expecting. I think our expectation is so low that we don't receive in the prayer groups what God has for us. Maybe that's not true in Capon Springs, can. But the prayer group is so vital, so vital. I get on a soapbox every time I start talking about the place of prayer groups. And God bless these dear ones that are in, they're not really leaders, they just chair it. And they sit there as God's sentinel, and there's a lot of things they do. They are in charge, but we're led to the feet of Jesus. If you don't do a thing but experience the fact that you've been in the presence of Jesus, you've had a successful prayer group session. Don't forget that. Then after the prayer group, it's dinner, and then somebody talks again. No, the singing is there. Singing, thank God for that. That's the launching pad for the speaker. We couldn't speak if we didn't have singing. That's why they time it just before the speaker gets up, so it gives the speaker something, momentum to. You just step right on the escalator and go on, you know. They create the atmosphere. Ruth and Wayne, oh goodness, it's such a joy to be with them. So this is, then after the talk, there's the fellowship hour and more food back there. I've been warned about, I should lose 5 pounds before I came, but I didn't get around to it. But I'm going to try not to gain that much. CFO, there's no way to describe it. Those of you that are here for the first time, welcome from the counseling. You've already gotten that, but welcome from me as having been, everybody has to go the first time. Every last one of us. Ruth Robinson had to go the first time. I had to go the first time. It's a long, long time ago, but I remember it very vividly. And there's not any camp like your first one. It's just special. You get your eyes open, you get your heart open. You didn't know that such feelings of love and acceptance was anywhere in the world, and it's here. And let us walk in the love of Jesus, in the can I help you attitude, and can I be of service to you? This is a real privilege. Now I'm going to try to give a talk. That was my first one. Last night, John beautifully led us into some thoughts that it's strange. He's been listening to the same God I've been listening to. And so I thought, well, Lord, I was going to talk about that, but I guess I'll follow John. I'll just step right in line. So I want to talk to you. I read in something recently, this isn't original, can you handle your load? Or can you handle your burden? I forgot which it is. Your load. Can you handle your load? Well, let's just stop and think a minute. I doubt if there's anyone here that didn't bring some kind of load. And it might vary from one weight to a great weight, a great load, maybe many loads. Well, I want to tell you, friend, that with the love of God and the love of this many people and your cooperation, those loads can just vanish and get less and less until when you get home, you'll be so glad and so fortified. But I want to talk to you along this line that John led us last night, and I have to follow some notes anymore because I just have to. But and I carry this thing around and tell people that Jesus heals today. But one day I'm not going to be able to, I won't need it, and I'm going to give it away to somebody else that hasn't found. The Lord gave me a beautiful healing in July, and why I didn't ask for my eyes. Everybody from the East Coast to the West has prayed for my eyes, and in other countries, and for some reason, I have not expected enough or something. But I'm still expecting, even though I have to read through a magnifying glass. So, can we handle our load? Look at your load. Now let's just be still a minute. What's the greatest load you brought up here? What's the greatest thing you're battling this morning? Somebody said, look at your load or look at your problem and then look up to God and say, God, are you able to handle this? And if the answer is no, you're in trouble. There isn't anything too big for God. You sing that song, I know, Ruth, my God is so great, so something, so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do. Well, if you know God to be that great and mighty, it's ridiculous to say, God, is this too big for you? Of course it isn't. I've looked in the mirror sometimes and with my glasses off, and I've said, God, you made these eyes. Nothing for you to heal them. Well, anyway, one day I'll see you and I'll tell you that I'm reading without, and maybe without these. You know, it could be I don't have to wear glasses just because I'm past 60. But I know that the power of God is real. I know that the load, this one load I carry, it's not the greatest load. I mean, it doesn't hurt me in here like one or two other things I have carried, and still carry at times. But can you handle your load? Have you been able to cope with it? I'll guarantee you one thing, if you don't know to draw on the resources of God, you can't cope with some of the things. They're too big for us. But they're not too big for God. And the closer I get to God, the bigger He is. God's growing as I grow. My God is getting bigger. And there's nothing my God cannot do. And so look at your load and ask God, facetiously maybe, but God, can you really handle this? Can you take care of this? You've tried everything you know and it hasn't worked. Maybe a little bit, but the victory hasn't been complete. God, can you handle this? Well, of course He can handle that rebellious teenager. And if you're in Texas, the price of oil what oil has happened and what it's done to the state of Texas and a few other states, and the depression that we know there, sort of, I've known one greater than that back in the 30s, but they think that's bad. They should have been. I remember one that was worse than that. So far, it's not gotten as bad as it was in the 30s. But God's able to handle anything. The increase in your rent and the increase in taxes at the same time, and all these things that can come in that you have no control over. Some things we carry loads are some that we picked up of our own, and we're responsible for it. We didn't have to bear them. We just took them. But there are some things you can't avoid. And so if you take your problem out and look at it. How big is it? Just how big is it? How long have I been carrying it? Has God delivered me in other instances in my life? Have I had any past experiences that would cause me to believe that God is able to do this one too? We can be honest with God. I quit praying churchy prayers a long time ago, and I feel so much better, and I just talk to God, and it's so much easier to approach Him, and I feel like He's my friend now. He always was, but I didn't know He was my friend. In fact, I shared with a group in Fredericksburg, I didn't know God loved me till I was 44 or 5 years old. I knew John 3:16 since I could remember reading. I knew He loved the world. But there's a difference in knowing a God that loves the world and a God that loves Thelma Lee. And I couldn't bring it to the specific because I didn't love Thelma Lee. And you know, we have to come to that place where it's mine. It is mine by experience. I have to experience that God does love me like I am. He doesn't love me according to performance. He loves me where I am. He doesn't love you because you're so good or so bad. He loves you because He is love. That's His nature. Now then, when you take your problem out and look at it, what can you do about it? First thing, of course, is to enlist the help of God and get honest before God and tell Him where you are. He knows, but He likes for us to talk to Him. I think that's why He told us to pray. He has such little time with us. TV has just taken family time till sometimes it irks me. I go to see part of my family and I want to have a visit with them. I live alone when I'm home, and I just don't like to be alone a lot. And so I go out to my sisters and my sons and my granddaughters, and it's time, and they turn that thing on. And it's not maybe what I want to see, but I'm in their home and I can't say, look, I don't want to see that. I just look at it. And maybe I don't look at it. I work crossword puzzle. But anyway, the communication has been broken down. Now there's a communication that controls that TV, but it certainly has disrupted more family lives than any mechanical instrument I know. I'm not fighting any TV companies, but this is the way I feel. That's where I am. When I go visit, I want to have time with the people. I don't want to have to sit and watch a ball game, and I don't know what teams are playing or what they did. I know what a touchdown is, and I know what a home run is, but that's about it. And I don't care to watch sports. I listened to it for years, 30 years. More than that, I listened to it 42 years. But sometimes we had the two boys there, and those three fellas watched games. But I got in a word at the half or something like that. But I'm telling you that getting alone with God and having communication with Him, and then if it's too big for your prayers alone, everybody needs a prayer partner. My prayer partner, the one I call mine, bless her heart, she's in a rest home, and she thinks she's back in Baylor University, and she doesn't know why they don't let her go to classes. And it's very discouraging when I go see her. She's just a year older than I am. And she doesn't know where she is. And have you not been hearing me back there?
I'm trying to get rid of the impact sound. You're too close to the mic.
I'm too close to the mic. Thank you. I was talking about TV or something. What was it? Prayer partner. Everybody needs a prayer partner. And select someone through guidance that you know will keep confident what you say. That someone you can trust. And confide and have that person pray with you. I don't know what I would have done through the years without prayer partners now and then. They've changed as I've moved, and this happened and that happened. But thank God for prayer partners, somebody who loves you enough to see you at your worst and still love you and help you carry your burden. So look at your burden and talk to the Lord about it and share it with somebody that you can trust. That's two things I advise. I recommend it. By use, I know it works. And I'm so grateful for hearts that listen. I've got one friend I love dearly, and I tell her about a problem I've got, and she preaches me a sermon. I don't want a sermon. I know I'm not at my highest, or I wouldn't be there looking for trouble. But I don't want a sermon. I want somebody to love me and tell me, it's going to be all right, Thelma, and I'm praying for you. That's what I want to hear. I may need that other, but I don't want to hear it. So this trusting friend is a gift of God. It's God ministering to you through another person. And there's nothing that gives you the joy, that feeling that you have been a conduit or a delivery truck or whatever you want to call it, for God's blessing to flow through you to somebody else, just to be an empty vessel. God's often say he's working short-handed. He'll use anybody that will offer themselves and be cleansed and receive Christ. You can become a channel to maybe a great person or someone who becomes great in the Lord. Philip got Andrew, and Andrew got Peter, and look what Peter made the headlines, and the other two, you don't read much about them, but they were used in this lineage of contact with Jesus. So trust a friend, and if you have been given a trust, keep it a trust. Keep it a trust, a holy, committed trust, Holy. Then another thing you can do is, we look back at yesterday and think, if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be, this wouldn't have happened. And there's not anything you can do about that. It's yesterday. So take the scissors and snip that off. Just cut it off. Nothing you can do about that. Put it under God's wonderful flow that cleanses everything. If it's a sin or if it's a mistake or whatever it is, God forgives and understands. We condemn ourselves and we go on guilt trips that are unnecessary because we didn't do this, we didn't do that. Take the scissors and snip yesterday off of your thinking. That's God's grace, if you prayed, has covered that. His forgiveness has covered that. Look at now. Today. Look at the now. That to now is a good word, isn't it? I like that. To now. Look at the now. All you have promised is strength for the day, and this is the day, which is Monday, the whatever this is, the 27th. All right. You have grace for October the 27th. That's today. Yesterday's expired, and the future hasn't come yet, so just believe God for the now. It's a fragile bridge, someone said, between yesterday and tomorrow. And it can only carry the load of one day without crashing. And we clutter up today with yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's fears until we can't enjoy today. You could carry your load. I could carry my load if I'd snip off yesterday and leave tomorrow till it gets here. I don't know whether I'll be here tomorrow. So I'm like the man went in the grocery store and he said the bananas were a bit green. He said, I don't even buy a stem of green bananas at my age. We don't have tomorrow. It will bring its own. The scripture says, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. It doesn't tell you not to expect good. It says, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. I didn't see that for a long time. It's unspoken there, but there's a hint there. Expect good, but don't dread. Expect the goodness of tomorrow, but don't dread. What has God delivered you from? Think of the greatest things in your life, the greatest victories you've known, where God has come down in a very gracious way and won a mighty battle for you, helped you through an impasse that you thought you could never get out of. That's helpful. If he brought me this far, if he took me through that 10 years ago, this is not too big for me. Weigh that. God told was it Moses or Joshua? Remember all the days I led you through that. It was Joshua. Remember all the days I led you through that wilderness. Why? Well, that included the manna. That included water from the rock. That included shoes that didn't wear out in 40 years. Don't know what the brand was, but they wore them for 40 years. They didn't wear out. Their clothes didn't wear out. They were protected from fierce animals and hijackers and robbers and all. They went through that wilderness 40 days, and there was a light at night and a cloud by day to keep the awful sun off. He took care of everything. I guess as long as Joshua lived, probably he may have looked back at that and thought, my, what God took us through. But you know, on the path they went by a place called Mara, bitter waters. God's path doesn't always lead us around the bitter experiences. He leads us through them. And in that, this is brand new, I never thought of that. He leads us through those experiences. He leads, that cloud stopped at Mara. How do you say that, John? M-A-R-A-H. Mara or Mara? Well, it was where there were bitter waters, and they were starving for water. But the cloud stopped there. You see, God's cloud stops sometimes, and we find ourselves at Mara. I don't know what that is, but you can look it up, the M-A-R-A-H. It means bitter waters. And the cloud stopped there, and they had to stop. Why? Why do we have to stop at our bitter waters? Why do we have to go through some of these experiences? I think, of course, I don't begin to know what God's mind is like. I just have a smattering of it that He's given to me. But I think we would never appreciate the wonderful flowing rivers and clean, and this water they got on my table in there. Oh, I haven't had water like that since I lived in Arkansas and grew up there. That's marvelous. It looks a little deceptive. It looks like a bottle of champagne, but it isn't. I opened it. But if we didn't go through the bitter waters, friends, if we didn't go through these trials and these difficulties, that's where we grow. Faith can't grow in the dark, except in the dark. What faith do you need as long as you can see your way through? Your faith can't grow one iota. I need to trust God here. I won't need to trust Him when I get to heaven. I won't have any battles there. At least that's my impression. I'm not expecting any battles when I get to heaven. Down here's where we have to fight the battles. And down here's when the grace is promised and the provisions are made. And that song, oh, that beautiful song that they led us in, great is thy faithfulness. All I have needed, thy hand has provided. I need some bitter water sometimes, but I don't enjoy them. I need discipline sometimes, but none of us like discipline. But God's cloud stops us there sometimes. And we find ourselves in something we wish we could get out of. If there's any way in the world, we'd squirm out of it. But there isn't. And if you did, you'd meet it down the road a piece. Because God disciplines His children. You know, undisciplined children are very difficult. Or have you found that out? I'm in many homes. I was in a blessed home the past week. There weren't any children there. Just one friend. She was a cat. She's a cat. And her name is Allie, so I called her Miss Allie. I deferred to her. I don't usually like cats, but I liked her. She minded her own business, and she didn't bother me, and I didn't bother her. And Miss Allie sat on the lovely blue velvet chair, and I knew that was off limits for me. That belonged to Miss Allie cat. So, and how did I get off on alley cats? Undisciplined children. Well, Miss Allie is disciplined, and some children are. And I just bless them, and they're darling. And then there's some that aren't, and they run the house. And whatever the parents are allowed to do is just permissible by the children. And this makes me almost mad. Because I got the switches when I wasn't. I got switched for the least little thing. I got discipline. You may not believe it now, but I did have my share of discipline. And life disciplines us. We must submit to discipline, or down the road we'll find it. And I believe if we refuse this step, the next step is a little harder. We take it as it comes. God loves His children, and He wants us to be lovable children that the world will accept and love, not undisciplined brats. Brats, that's an awful word. Undisciplined children, I'll say that. He desires us to be under subjection to Him and really under subjection to each other. Be ye subject one to another. the scripture said. I'm to love you with a sustaining, helpful love. I'm to help you grow by loving you. And conversely, you're supposed to love me and help me grow. And when we do, there's a divine osmosis there that takes place that only God can bring about. And your burdens get lighter because you've got help. The body of Christ ministering to itself is so beautiful. Nobody gets credit if the body is ministering to itself. If I cut this thumb the other day, and this one was doing, and this one is clumsy, but it was doing everything this right one had been doing that it possibly could. Not very well, but it was taking over for this thumb that was bleeding so, and it hurt for a day or two. It's all right now. But I'm telling you that the body, it's marvelous how the body goes to the rescue of any part of it that's wrong. There's a clotting that takes place and too much bleeding, and there's this and there's that. I don't understand certainly about the anatomy. I just know it's mysteriously made by God. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And I'm a part of the body of Christ. And I may be in the body next to you. And I could be an emery board to you if I won't fit in my place. There's some emery boards in the body. Have you ever found that out? I have. Maybe I've been one sometimes too. That's filing off and taking off those rough edges, comfortable as they are to us. We've had them for years and we don't like to have them rubbed on. I tell you, it's a pretty bad blow when the first night you speak in a camp to have a man that you find out later is a Presbyterian minister. Now, that's not confined to Presbyterian. To come up and tell you they don't like you and they don't like to hear women talk, and they saw me speaking and started to turn around and go home. And I thought, well, you knew there was a woman speaking when you saw the brochure. Well, he couldn't judge me because he hadn't heard me before. But now if he'd gone home the next day, I would have forgiven him anyway. But you know, about the third day, he came to me and put his arms around me and told me he loved me. And, well, I didn't know he didn't love me till he told me. But I was so blessed. And then I thought, I was shocked a little bit, and I thought, well, why shouldn't he dislike me? Thelma Lee, just because you don't mean to hurt anybody, that doesn't mean you don't make enemies. And there's not something wrong with everybody that dislikes you. They're just normal people sometimes, and they don't like you. And so it was a discipline. Oh, dear, I got so hurt at that man. And there was about 250 people there, and I thought, if he doesn't like, and then this old pattern of my poor self-image, and I thought, dear Lord, how many others don't want to hear me? How many? And then I had a pity party, you know, and you know what that does to you. You just, well, don't do it. It just doesn't help a bit. It takes away your... Anyway, share your load with Christ, share it with a friend, and snip off yesterday and leave tomorrow alone and stay out of its territory. You're not there yet. And tomorrow there'll be another day. If there isn't, you won't have to face it. And so that's comforting to me. I leave things undone sometimes at night. I didn't used to do it. I'd stay up till it was done, or my professor used to say, or bust a flu. But you know, I had a doctor that told me one time when I was pretty helpless I had to change my lifestyle. So now I go to bed and leave some things that ought to be done. I think, oh, I'll do that in the morning if I'm around. If I'm not, I won't have to do it. So that's the way it is. You think about tomorrow, leave tomorrow alone. You're not there yet, and you don't have tomorrow's grace, and you won't have it till in the morning. I wish somebody told me this 45 years ago. I really do. I never heard this talk like this. I never heard a CFO till 1945. I didn't get to one till 1950, but I sure made up for lost time. I've been going, first year I went to 2. And it's been so great. I love the church. But the church can't do for its congregation what an informal CFO can do for you. One-to-one, loving people and embracing people and assuring them of your love. I go home from camp not wanting to go home. And they sang this song in Kentucky, and I bought the tape just to get it off. Do you know that I don't want to go home? Well, you know, if I had a voice, I'd sing it, but I want you all to stay here, so I won't start. It says, I don't want to go home. And it's a tune to show me the way to go home. I don't want to go home. I'm having a wonderful time. Some folks say there's no place like home, but this place is sublime. Send me the rest of my clothes, and no longer will I roam. You'll always hear me singing this song. I don't want to go, I don't want to go, I don't want to go home. I thank God for your attention this morning. At least you let me think you were listening, and that helps. God bless.